सारे ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵੈਸਟ। ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਗੱਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਲਾਈਫ ਬਾਰੇ, ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਬਾਰੇ, ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਫਿਊਚਰ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਆ। ਸੋ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਥ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਲਾਇਰਸ ਤੋਂ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ we have today with us Adam Ueland, partner, and Ravneet Bhatti, manager HR and operations at Simpson, Thomas and Associates. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to speak in Punjabi and English, mix it up a little bit. The reason we're doing that is because our viewers, obviously, they can speak both and understand both, but you have a lot of languages at Simpson, Thomas and Associates, so that's a really great thing for our community, because sometimes having that language barrier is difficult to make that interaction as smooth as possible. So if you could speak a bit about Simpson, Thomas and Associates, Ravneet, we'll start with you.
So we've been around for about 50 years. We have about 40 staff at the firm. And as you mentioned, we have a variety of languages. We have staff that speak Punjabi, Hindi, Korean, Cantonese, Mandarin, and maybe some French.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of different languages. And when we talk about ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਦੀ, and I'll speak a little bit in Punjabi with you, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਦੀ ਆ ਵਕੀਲਾਂ ਦੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਪਏ ਵਕੀਲ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈਗੀ. We don't always trust, you know, someone that's outside of our family, first of all, and also the law and lawyers, and like, you have to tell your lawyer everything so you can get the best advice possible.
Yeah.
ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਆ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ build ਕਰਦੇ ਆ? How can we trust? How do you have that trust? Do you have that in the community?
So basically, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ, they're very family oriented. Okay. So they make everything easy for you. ਜੋ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਹ answer ਕਰਦੇ ਆ. They'll spend their time with you. They'll make you feel comfortable.
Right. Now ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇਸ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਆ 50 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ.
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
And ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋਕੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਆ?
ਸਾਡੀ ਇੱਕ ਲੋਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵੈਂਕੂਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ.
So that's very convenient to have those locations. I know, Adam, you don't speak Punjabi, but you're following along. I can see that you're totally understanding everything we're saying.
I'm completely engaged.
So having those locations in Surrey and Vancouver, that's a benefit, obviously, because our community is obviously very prevalent in Surrey and Vancouver as well.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then the areas of law that you practice at Simpson, Thomas and Associates. ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ.
So ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ family law ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, some immigration, employment law, general litigation, and some wills and estates.
So when we talk about family law,
yes,
I mean, this is what you do every day, day in, day out. So you know this. This is your specialty. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਲਾਅ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਕਰਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਛ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, whenever we start our life, we think of things are going to go smoothly, everything's going to be wonderful. No one ever starts their life thinking, I'm going to marry this person and then we're going to get divorced. No one thinks that. Unfortunately in life, ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਆ. So what is family law for those people ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ?
So family law ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਿਵੋਰਸ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆ, we can help with that. ਜੇ ਕੋਈ separation agreement ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆ, we can help with that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add to that? When we talk about family law, what does that actually mean? So we heard about divorce and we heard about separation agreements. Family law, can you kind of just give us a description of what that means?
When family law issues arise, it's obviously very emotional. And it's a big, devastating impact on a person's life, because family is one of the most important things you have in your life. So when you're falling apart, there's so many issues that rise up you don't even think of. The emotion of it is a big one. And we were speaking of languages earlier. For people to be able to speak to us in their own language about these personal and emotional issues is very important to them. They feel comfortable, they feel confident in what we're doing. And it brings them some sense of peace that this will pass and people will resolve it. But it involves everything. If you have children, you have property, you have to deal with all of these issues and all the emotions that deal with it. And we try to provide a comforting, supportive environment where you're free to speak to us about what is happening in your life, although very personal, and we can help you provide solutions and get through it.
Right. And I mean, just before we started this interview, we had a little conversation about things that come up in family issues and the working toward less confrontation. Can you speak to that a bit, Adam?
Sure. The courts have themselves realized that the trauma of actually going through the court process of family law is actually quite devastating, especially on children. So they're really working toward what they call a collaborative approach, where they want people not to be so adversarial, the lawyers themselves in the court process, but think about the future and the fact that we need to get this done Everyone's going to be harmed and hurt by this process. Let's find an easy way where everyone comes out with not as much impact on a personal and emotional level, but still the results are fair and dignified. So it's important that we really work together as council and as a firm to provide results without causing any more harm than it's already been people going through.
That sounds like a more human approach rather than, back in the day where it's like, well, how many billable hours can we get? So it's nice that it's more of a caring approach.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then working towards less confrontation, and then planning for your estate. That was the other thing. When you're talking about family issues, planning for your estate, well, what does that mean? We'll start with you, Adam, and then I'll get back to you.
Well, it's what you spoke of earlier. When you first start your life and get married, you think everything's going to go well, everything's going to go fine.
Yeah.
But you're also going to want to have goals, and you maybe want to retire, or you want to have a home, or you want something along those lines.
Okay.
Or maybe you want to care for your kids after you're gone. And all of that planning for the future, the unanticipated, the things you can actually plan for. You want a bit of a security net there.
Okay.
That also works well when you're dealing with family issues of separation. You want to make sure that the kids are taken care of from both parents, and both people can continue on as best they can. So it's a lot of looking at what you have, and although you want to have a rosy outlook for the future, making sure if something goes wrong, you're still okay.
Realistic, right?
Yes.
So when we're talking about planning for your estate, that's not necessarily tied in with divorce or separation. That is something that everyone should be planning for their estate, including wills, which a lot of us just kind of don't even want to think about that, the rose-colored glasses, right?
Exactly.
It never happened to me.
Yes.
When we're talking about wills and stuff, I know that we're not really going to go deep into that, but everyone should have a will.
Yeah.
Easy process?
It is. It can be a very simple process for most people, because you're simply talking about your personal assets. You mostly have a person you're going to provide them to if you pass on, and your family environment. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. It can get complicated if you have multiple properties or properties outside the jurisdiction, but that's legal talk. That's for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about just planning for your future. For most people, it's very straightforward.
Okay. So Ravneet, in Punjabi, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਸੀਅਤਨਾਮਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੌਖਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਲਈ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਡਰਦੇ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸੋ
So basically ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ will ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਡਰਾਫਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ it'll be like a back and forth process until it's correct.
Okay.
But basically बहुत easy ਆ ज़्यादा time नहीं लगता हैगा and like you said everybody should have one.
Yeah, I think it's necessary, but it's one of those things that we'll get to it and then sometimes we don't, and then the people that are left behind. Can you tell me what happens if somebody doesn't have a will?
It becomes very difficult. It becomes a much longer process, especially in circumstances where someone else relies on that person for their survival. And if they don't have access to the bank accounts, if they don't have access to the sources of income or the credit cards, you're sitting in a position where the court can't release them funds to even buy food or survive on because they don't have access to those accounts. It becomes very difficult. So estate planning is not just about a will, it's about giving people access and knowing that in times of trouble that they will be able to take care of themselves and that the other people won't be left in limbo without having access to funds they need for survival.
See, that's a big deal. ਕਰਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਪੂਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਭਈ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਐਕਸੈਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing.
It's very.
Because when someone passes away, they think, well, they'll get my money eventually. But eventually could be like a year after it's gone through probate or whatever it is that the legal jargon.
Correct. You got it right.
Yay. Okay, cool. Okay, so did you want to add to anything about wills at all?
Just ki, like you said, loki sochte nahi ki sanu chahiye will ya nahi chahiye, easily paise mil jayenge, but it's really not that easy unless if you have a will. So everybody should have a will.
Have one.
Yeah.
What about contesting it? Because I know that in our culture, a lot of times we leave everything to the son. It's getting better now, but it's not always the way. What would you say to that? Have you seen a lot of that happen in the community?
When you speak to people about it, you have to make sure they understand that Canadian law respects the rights of the children. And that's where they come from. It's always about from the eyes of the children, even in family law and wills and estates. They want to make sure that kids aren't left out for inappropriate reasons. So if someone doesn't wish to have a child be receiving some of their benefits when they pass, you have to be very specific about that, and very specific about the reason. So it's not just thought of that you didn't think of them.
Right.
You took time and care and consideration to make these decisions, and that's shown in the will and the documents that go before the courts. When the court looks at it, they think, yes, this person took time to care and consideration of what they were doing, and they did it for a reason.
Right.
That's usually helpful,
So
whatever the decisions you make are.
Yeah. Okay. Other areas of practice. So did you talk about personal injury? Can you talk about personal injury?
Yeah. So We are doing some personal injury. ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਈ ਸੱਟ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ slip and fall, ਤੁਸੀਂ still claim ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ.
Okay.
With ICBC no fault, I will let Adam explain about that.
Okay. Before we get into the no fault, personal injury covers what?
So anytime that you get injured by someone else's negligence, then there's a claim for personal injury there.
So I have a question for you. If we got into a fight, me and you got into a fight, like a physical fight.
Yep.
And I wanted to sue you over that. Is that personal injury?
If the assault's intentional and it wasn't there's a lot of conflict around that because historically there's been bar fights are the classic example.
That's what I was referring to.
And you have over-service on the bar. Sometimes someone's drunk and intoxicated and things like that. But the other thing about suing on personal injury is they have to have something to sue for. They have to have assets.
Right.
And that person may not have a home or a car or any reason to pay any claim that you actually make.
Okay.
Or if they have home insurance, intentional acts aren't usually covered.
Okay.
So it's not just simply, I assaulted you, you can sue me and you're going to get money.
Right.
It has to be the circumstances and the individual you're dealing with.
So this would be more like a vehicle, say, accident, something like that, or like a slip and fall, like you said, Ravneet, something along that lines?
Yes, there's tons of trip and falls, slip and falls, things like that on private or public property, all those different things. Motor vehicle accidents are obviously different now. This no-fault regime is in place.
Okay.
But there are still parts of that regime that personal injury lawyers can be assisted in.
Okay.
ICBC, to some people, can almost be the most friendliest experience.
Yes.
and even to lawyers, it's a complex program they've set up there. So people have many questions, we can help with those questions depending on the nature of the issues you're having. Also within the nature of no-fault regime, there is something called the Permanent Impairment Award, which for someone who's seriously injured, there's still what is equivalent somewhat to a pain and suffering claim. And depending on the nature of the injuries, they can have those awards. And that's, again, an actually very complicated document.
Right.
But there is those things for people who are seriously injured that a lawyer would definitely be of assistance to, and you can speak to them.
Okay. So what is insurance denials, Adam?
Well, that covers a broad range of situations, from being ICBC being denied on personal injury claim for insurance coverage, being denied on your car claim for insurance coverage. It can also be your home. You have a flood or damage to your home and insurance companies deny that coverage. We can help with that. Okay. I've helped people whose RV got damaged in a flood and they needed help having that properly assessed and dealt with. So there's a wide range of that. And what we do is, insurance companies can be difficult and can be troublesome. Right. And so we provide you with the opportunity to fight them and make sure you get the proper compensation for the damages based on your policy.
Okay. When people come to you, I mean, a lot of times, being a layman outside of your industry, I don't know anything about it except for I know that when I need help, I want to come see you. But then sometimes I'm afraid of how expensive it can get. Mm-hmm. Did you want to speak to that, Ravneet?
Yeah. So basically, J personal injury claim, oho contingency based. So ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ settlement ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ end ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ fees ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਆ. ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ areas of law ਆ ਉਹ, so there's a paid initial consultation. Okay. ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ retainer pay ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ, so ਜਿਹੜੀ fees ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, and basically ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ retainer use ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ fees pay ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਪੈਂਦੀਆਂ.
Okay, so ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ contingency ਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ?
Personal injury.
Personal injury. So ਜੇ ਕੋਈ the slip and fall ਜਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਵੇ,
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੈਸੇ ਮਿਲੂਗੇ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਕੀਲ ਨੂੰ ਪੈਸੇ ਮਿਲੂਗੇ.
ਹਾਂਜੀ, end ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ settlement ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ.
Okay, so that's not a bad way to go. I mean, if you think, might as well try. I mean, if you can get some compensation and it's paid at the back end rather than up front.
Correct. We also refer to it as it's a no risk to them kind of procedure. So if we think that the claim is worthwhile, we can take them on. There's no money up front for them. There's no ongoing financial obligations for them. It's only at the end of the claim that we would take our fees and they would get the result at that time.
Okay. So we've got employment law. Employment law.
It sounds kind of vague, but really it deals with when you lose your job or when you feel like you've been forced out of your job, which is called, is an often complex question because some people will be in a work environment and they feel like their boss or their coworkers are not creating an environment that they can work in. And so they feel like they've been pushed out.
Right.
And that's a difficult situation to be in.
Yes.
And we get a lot of people in those circumstances. I advise to you, come early. Like, don't just walk off the job or quit without speaking to a lawyer first, because you can jeopardize what your future may look like and how you may get compensation for the trouble that you've been through.
Okay.
So there's situations about being treated poorly in the office, And then constructive dismissal is the legal fancy term. And that could also include if your job description changes drastically without proper change in compensation or things like that, or they take away support you used to have. And that can be very difficult. For instance, if we're a lawyer and we're working with 2 or 3 assistants and all of a sudden they say you have no assistants anymore, well, that would be a much different job for you. And then that would be difficult because that was a definite change in your conditions of your employment, which could be seen as just trying to get you out the door. And you deserve compensation for that as if you're being fired.
Right. Again, we start a job, you know, and we're going to show up on time, even early, and we're going to pack our lunch and all those great things. And then eventually you're like, oh, becomes a toxic work environment sometimes. And in our notes before we started this, we were talking about how you want to document as things go on. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, in the world of technology, so many emails and text messages and things like that go around, or even social media pictures and stuff like that. So those are often very good evidence of what the toxic environment you were mentioning is reflective of. So some people just want to erase them, they don't want to see them, or they just want to get that email out of there but no, make sure you are paying attention to those things so we can, as a lawyer, can understand the background and the context. That's going to give us a lot more information for us to understand what you've been through. And then it's not just your word against somebody else's, because that often becomes a problem. Just he said, she said is the classic phrase.
That's right.
But you don't want that to be it. You want to be able to have support to understand what you've been through and without just having to be the one to explain it.
Yeah. So Ravneet, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਬੂਤ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ. So ਇਦਾਂ ਪੇ emails ਹੋਣ, ਕੰਮ ਦੇ emails ਜਾਂ photos ਹੋਣ ਜਾਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੁਝ. ਜਿਹੜੇ text messages admissible ਆ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ? Adam ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਗਾ. Adam?
Yes, I interpreted text message question from that. Yes, they are, because they are electronic exchange of information. So you can definitely have those be evidence that we have, because sometimes people think that outside the work environment, I can just text somebody, even though you are boss or in a boss kind of worker relationship. That's still not acceptable. And so you got to make sure that at those times, those aren't just deleted or destroyed, because they can be very effective, because people often don't think that they are.
No, because I think that's the rumor, is that you have to have an email, but text messages are admissible. Interesting. Okay. All right. So then estate litigation. We kind of just talked about that already, I would say, is we covered, you know, estates and how things can go kind of haywire after the person passes.
Correct.
Is there more you wanted to add to the estate litigation?
The other one that's difficult about that is when, specifically in the community, the Punjabi community, you may not have all your relatives in the country. You may not have all your assets in the country.
That's true.
And it can make it very complicated in that circumstances. And other times you have a lot of families under one roof. And so the documentation may not have been explained to all the family members. There may be a misunderstanding in regards to who may have been on the paper, who may have been on the deed, that sort of thing. So those questions can be very difficult and hard for some people to see and understand. So you really have to plan in advance for that, to avoid that confrontation after someone passes, where their understanding of what was said is not what was written down. And so those complications can be quite difficult, especially when you have multiple families or multiple family members, and not everything is within the one country or the one jurisdiction.
That's right. That would be a challenge, to get everything from, say, India and try to figure out what's where. How do you go about doing that?
Very difficult, and enforcement is also a very difficult problem, because you may get orders in BC court based on the estate, the will, and all of that, but then you have to somehow have them enforced in India to force the sale of a property or the assets to be sold and divvied up appropriately, which can be quite difficult.
Yeah, Simpson, Thompson and Associates travels, I suppose.
Yes, we do. And that's another thing where the language issue is very important. You can speak to people in India and speak to them in their language where they understand. And it's very helpful to explain sometimes difficult conversations, both emotionally and technically, if you can speak to them in their own home language, which is excellent.
So on a personal, I mean, we don't need names, obviously, but when you're dealing with clients like that, have you come across like kind of a heated family dynamic where you're like, we need to get this solved and it's a lot of work for you?
There's a lot of issues with separation in between husband and wife when there may have been inappropriate behavior in their relationship. And someone just flees. And back to the point where you have no access. So you have someone, usually it's a woman in my experience, may have to take their kids and are in a shelter somewhere. And they have no money. Because the husband owned the access to the accounts. Maybe their family's back in India or in other parts, and they're literally by themselves with 2 children, trying to get by, trying to feed themselves and their kids. And that's when you have to get in there right away and get the child support going, get the spousal support going, make sure that the money is accessible so they can have a place to live, they can feed their kids. And that's very obviously stressful. And it's not only that, you have to act now. It's not like you can sit back, I'll think about this for 2 weeks and we'll deal with this from a month from now. No, tomorrow I've got to be in court. And I've got to get this done, because it's about kids, and these are young kids many times, and you have such an emotional issue between the two adults, and it becomes very heated. And you have to keep them separated. You have to kind of calm that situation down so you can get rational and reasonable instructions to get the job done, so everyone gets taken care of immediately. And also then the long-term aspects of that, where everyone gets a fair shot at living a life based on what they've been through.
So Ravneet, Adam just explained about a woman and her kids maybe having to flee. थोड़ा जिहा सानू पंजाबी च समझाओ करके मैनू पता भी साडे जिहड़े दर्शक देख रहे उन्हां नू पंजाबी इंग्लिश दोने समझदे पर जे तुसीं पंजाबी च थोड़ा जिहा दस सकदे आ इन्हां ने की सानू समझाया.
So जे ਤੁਹਾਡਾ divorce difficult ਹੈਗਾ ਆ and ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਤੇ like shelter ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਾ ਪਏਗਾ or something like that ਇੱਕਦਮ best ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ lawyer ਨੂੰ right away contact ਕਰੋ wait ਨਾ ਕਰੋ because ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ child support and ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਅਸੀਂ right away figure out ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ.
Really? So that's good ਕਰਕੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਛੱਡਣ ਤੋਂ.
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
ਰੱਬ ਕਰੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਰਹਿਣ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡੇ ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਛੱਡਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਦੌੜੀਏ ਕੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਬੱਚੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਖਿਲਾਉਣਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੜਾਉਣਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਘਰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਸ਼ੈਲਟਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਰਾਈਟ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ maybe sometimes ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਟੇਨਰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਰਿਟੇਨਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ first we're going to help you right away because your heart is in it, and then the retainer gets paid.
It's true, and in many circumstances where you have relationships like that, if there's assets, you know they own a home, you know that assets will be divided eventually. So you know the funds are there, it's just going to be access to those funds. And but first and foremost is taking care of the children and people to make sure they're fed and taken care of and have a place to sleep. We can worry about the bigger asset division when the time is appropriate.
See, you know, I know we're smiling and kind of like having like a lighthearted discussion. This is heavy conversation, but it makes me happy to know, and also just our viewers, makes us all happy to know that if someone's in trouble, they don't have to think, well, I don't have the money right in my hand at this moment to save my kids. They can just save their kids and say, hey, can we figure out cost after, or like, you know, payment later? You're saying it's all about heart and let's get these people help before and then figure it out. Like that makes me really happy.
I'm glad, and we try and support the community in many different ways, and that's one of them. If you have difficulty finding a lawyer or it's the wrong time, there's always legal aid too you can contact. But they're very helpful as well. But it is a process. There's paperwork and there's things they have to go through. So, but the most important thing is reach out very quickly in those circumstances.
And you're so friendly. I mean, when you think about lawyers, you think they're like not as approachable, I suppose. I mean, that's how I perceive them. That's a terrible stereotype.
It sometimes can be true. We're very analytical, very sometimes combative, but we try and be as friendly as we can, especially at Simpson Thomas, as we mentioned. It's a family environment. We want to give that perception.
You, Adam, are very friendly. Your face, you know, very joyous and approachable. Ravneet, the rest of the staff, tell me about the staff at Simpson Thompson Associates.
We sare Simpson Thomas they bought friendly higya. Like I said, it's a family oriented firm. Sare Bernie Simpson nu jande a, and they know how much he's helped the community. And so Sare Onnavargaya, Sare Adam Vargaya, they're all very friendly. It's a very friendly environment. We've got several legal assistants that work with the firm. We've got paralegals. We've got intake staff that will deal with new clients at the initial process, and we've got 9 lawyers that work with us.
So a big team.
Yes.
One of the concerns I have on a personal note is I've been through a process where I had to have a lawyer, and I had to contact my lawyer all day long until finally I would get back a call or maybe an email. She seemed too busy to take my call, and going through something so stressful in my personal life, I was already feeling kind of down and out, and to not have that support made me feel worse. And at the end of it, I just didn't know if I disliked my spouse more or my lawyer more. At Simpson Thomas and Associates, tell me, is that the case?
No.
Okay.
We've been practicing in the area of helping people. That's always what we want to do. We're not on a corporate side. We're not trying to do corporate clients. We did help individuals. That's our main focus. And we know how important it is and how stressful these situations can be. And sometimes just a simple call to say, yes, I'm on it. It doesn't have to be a half-hour call. It doesn't have to be explaining the entire case. Just simply saying, yes, I received your email. I have the documents and I'm dealing with it. And that provides a peace of mind. And that's what our job is. So we will work really hard to make sure that the people feel that they're being they properly understand what's going on, they're kept up to date, and that peace of mind is given to them throughout the process until conclusion.
And they're being heard.
Yes, absolutely, because that's so important. And knowing those next actions, like this is what we're doing now, this is what's coming up. Knowing that kind of keeps you just kind of anchored. Otherwise, your world's falling apart and your lawyer's not getting back to you. But it's nice to know that you've got a team of lots of people working together to make sure no one's getting missed.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so the team behind this successful firm, you said that you've got a lot of staff, you've got multilingual staff, empathetic, I can see that. And your Punjabi, English, Hindi was our main three, and then you said there's also other languages.
Yes.
And then we talked about paralegals and legal assistants. What is the role of paralegals and legal assistants?
I'll get that one for you.
Okay.
Paralegals do most of the kind of legal drafting. So they're working around pleadings, they're working around separation agreements, they're helping drafting wills and things like that. So the actual documentation and the research behind that documentation. Lawyers obviously do a lot of the research and the legal planning. And then legal assistants are much more the front face, the contact, the immediate person you can speak to, and they're dealing with that communication both between lawyer and client, between law firms and things like that, and managing the file to make sure nothing slips through the cracks and everything is done appropriately.
There's that teamwork. Nothing's getting missed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. So every time I'm out in the community, I see you guys everywhere. You're a big part of the community, supporting community kids through foundations like
Kids Play.
Yeah, tell us about that.
We're super happy to be part of the organization. It's a great organization. They started locally, but they've gone worldwide.
Yeah.
And their focus is on helping kids. The people that started the organization was a police officer, a very interesting man. I've met him many times, a great guy.
Yeah.
And the people that work with him come from gangs, some of them, come from difficult times of their own on the streets. And that's their focus. They see these kids that get lost because they don't have the support system at home that they need. Yeah. So they provide the support system in the community. And that's essential. I think that's a big time issue. A village raises a child. We've heard that phrase many times.
Yes.
And it's true.
It does take a village.
So they have many events. They're part of the Vaisakhi parade with us. We share a tent and we spend time together. Okay. They have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, which we've been to, which is excellent. So
do you play the basketball though?
In my youth, I used to play basketball.
Now you're the ref.
Now I am a happy bystander and I clap when things go right.
Adam, it's making me laugh because I'm thinking you're like, well, that move wasn't legal.
Yes.
Right?
I try and keep that away from those children and those sports and focus on the fun. Yeah. They also have galas focused on mental health initiatives, which is a big deal for people going through struggles, both for children and for families. It's very important to recognize that. They're very good at fundraising to provide these opportunities in the community. Yeah. And so we're very happy part of that. That's all started with Bernie Simpson. He's been around forever helping families. He's always been focused on families.
Tell us about Bernie Simpson. And also, maybe, Adam, you can start, and then maybe you can say it in Punjabi a little bit so we know who we're talking about.
Bernie Simpson has been a staple of this community since beyond time. He's been in politics. He's ran this firm for a very long time. Simpson Thomas and Associates with Anthony was around since 2000 in this current state it's in. But his belief in this community, his presence in this community, his name in this community has been a big part. And we want to continue that on. He continues that on in so many different aspects. It's a great combination of his passion for people and the community he supports.
Very good. Bernie Simpson community ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ.
And ਸਾਰੇ like ਮੇਰੇ age ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ, even ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਸੀਗੀ, like everybody knew who Bernie Simpson was. Yeah. Oh, very family oriented. He wants to help everybody. Right. Him and, as Adam said, him and Anthony, they created Simpson Thomas. So Bernie Bella, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ company ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ Simpson and Company. ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ Anthony ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ Simpson and Thomas ਬਣਾਈ. Okay. Bernie also, like ਜਿਹੜਾ Ross Street ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹੁਤ involved ਸੀਗੇ, ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ involved ਹੈਗੇ.
With the ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Vancouver Joho MLA sige at some point back years and years ago. So he's very involved with the community, very involved with the Punjabi community. Yeah. When, I don't know if you remember, back in 2007, the Abbotsford wedding accident happened, the Jago accident. Okay. He was very much involved with that.
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸੋ ਕੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਐਕਸੀਡੈਂਟ
So Abbotsford ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ wedding ਸੀਗੀ and there was a Jago going down the road and ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਰ ਮਾਰੀ. Okay. And so
ਕੋਈ ਮਰਿਆ ਸੀ?
Yes. Really? So there were about 15-16 that were injured.
So 15-16 ਜਣੇ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੱਟ ਲੱਗੀ?
Yeah. ਤੇ 7 individual ਦੀ death ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀਗੀ. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਦੋ ਜਾਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਬੱਚੇ ਸੀਗੇ.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That's
So
so
he was
sad.
very, very involved with that.
Okay.
And that took a few years
ਉਹ ਫਿਰ
to...
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਨਸੀਡੈਂਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਜਾਣ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ
ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹ just ਜਾਗੋ ਰੋਡ ਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ, ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਡੀ ਮਾਰਤੀ. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's where when there's something that's we're celebrating something happy and
Yes.
something really tragic happens, we
Yes.
need help. We need someone we can count on. So that's
Yeah, and ਉਹਨਾਂ
sad,
ਨੇ
but it's
Bernie ਨੂੰ
also
phone
nice that he
ਕੀਤਾ,
helps.
and Bernie was there every day,
yeah.
trying to be there for them. So
Wow. They say that attitude reflects leadership. And Bernie sounds like a wonderful, person. So, I mean, and the positivity, you can see it with both of you. When we talk about community cancer care support, can you tell us a bit about that?
It's another organization we support because it's obviously a very important and very big organization that helps people that are in dire need. Because
Yeah.
illness can be devastating to a family, not just to the individual.
Yeah.
And so it's important that they get the proper help and support when they need it, both in physical and mental health issues, to make sure that people are able to endure what they have to endure.
Yeah. You're successful. Your firm is successful. You don't even have to do all these community initiatives. Why do you do them?
Interestingly enough, one of my first experiences working at the firm with Bernie and his generosity, it was very simple, but it meant a lot to me.
Okay.
It was a young family.
Yeah.
We were in a motor vehicle accident. We got them a settlement. But it was, they didn't have a lot of money.
Okay.
They had 2 young children.
Right.
And they were happy, but they obviously were struggling. Basement suite, 1 bedroom, 4 people. And he simply gave them a bunch of Toys R Us gift certificates for like $500. And it was in November. Christmas was around the corner. And I thought, it's such a simple gesture.
Yeah.
It was so, but the joy they got out of such a simple gesture was amazing. And I saw him do it. I was one working on the payout at the end of the claim, and I thought, so simple yet so nice and so effective. And he didn't know them, they were my clients, but he saw it, he heard about them. So he came in the boardroom when they were leaving, he said, I have these for you.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that is
That
just
is
one way to
wonderful.
maintain a firm and be a good person.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, we do a lot of jobs. In our life, to make ends meet, we all do different jobs, and sometimes people see us as, oh, well, that job, and they judge us. But what you're doing, if you look at it in detail, you're helping people out of bad situations and helping them literally get through the forest so they can finally get out and be free. And I guess we'd have to say thank you because you're doing a great job. The positivity, the community support, and then obviously getting people through that tough time. How do we get in contact with this lovely staff? Tell us all the ways to get in touch with you, your locations, every single way that ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ.
So ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਫਿਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ Surrey ਵਿੱਚ, Surrey Memorial Hospital ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ. ਸਾਡੀ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਅੰਡਰਗਰਾਉਂਡ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ.
Perfect.
ਦੂਜੀ ਲੋਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਡਾਊਨਟਾਊਨ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਅੰਡਰਗਰਾਉਂਡ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ.
What's the location of the cross streets in Vancouver?
Hornby ਤੇ Nelson ਤੇ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ.
Okay, and good parking you said again.
Yeah.
Okay, and then to call you, if I don't want to drive all the way out there, can I phone you?
Yes.
Okay.
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਉਹ 604-689-8888 ਹੈਗਾ ਆ.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ? Maybe? Let's
Yes.
try. 604
604
ਫਿਰ
689 8888.
Good enough. Okay, so ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ 604 689 8888.
Yes.
That's a good number to remember, so that's good. I think there's even a fancier way to say it in Punjabi, but we did pretty good for being girls that were born here, I'm assuming, right? So sometimes, we want to have that privacy. We don't want to make a phone call in our house and let everyone know we're contacting a lawyer. It can be a very dangerous situation sometimes. Do you have a website?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, website ਹੈਗੀ ਆ www.simpsonthomas.com.
Okay.
Website ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ form fill out ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ.
Okay.
ਤੇ live chat ਹੈਗੀ ਆ.
Oh, there's live chat.
Yeah, so live chat with ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੀ information provide ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰੇਗਾ.
So ਜਿਹੜੀ live chat ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਅਸਲ 'ਚ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਰੋਬੋਟ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ?
ਬੰਦਾ ਹੈ.
Really?
Yes.
So ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਨਾ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, yeah.
Okay, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹਾਲੇ privacy ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸੋ. Adam, tell us about privacy.
Privacy is obviously extremely important.
Yeah, that is really important. The reason I'm really keying in on that is because we are a very private culture. I mean, all cultures are private, but the South Asian culture is especially very proud and very private. So if I thought for a second my information would be out there, I would never contact anyone. I'd just be like, okay, I'll just endure this pain.
Privacy is a big issue, especially within the legal community, and for the exact reasons you're talking about. And so it's fundamental to what we do, and all your information is protected and private, and it always will be.
Okay.
Many times we speak of resolving claims or dealing with issues, and someone doesn't want to have anyone else in their family know, and we don't tell them.
Yeah.
We don't share that information with anybody. And if there's ever going to be information getting out, we speak to them about it before it does.
Right.
And those are conversations we have every day because we realize the importance of it, and it's something we definitely take pride in.
See that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਦੱਸੋ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਸੱਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਰਮ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
very important.
So basically ਜੋ ਵੀ information ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੀ ਰਹਿਣੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ information ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ so feel free to be honest and truthful and transparent.
Okay.
Study information completely ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਰਹਿਣੀ ਆ.
Yeah, because in some situations I'm imagining like a woman or a man in a situation where their spouse is maybe being abusive. So just to make it equal, say that the man is being abused by his wife. And especially in our culture, men will never admit that they're being abused because it's always the other way around. So say he's like afraid to tell anybody and worried that it'll get back to her. You're saying there's no way that she would find out because you guys wouldn't tell. You keep that all private.
So all conversations like that are private.
Yeah.
We don't share them with anybody. If eventually you have to file an action, obviously it will come out. But those are all questions and times that we ask over time.
Right.
And we make sure that before any steps are taken where information may become more broader known, like we speak to a family friend or we're speaking to someone else to confirm what they have to say, we get that permission first. We want to make sure there's nothing that's getting out there that would put some person in jeopardy. It's a big deal. The other thing too, you want to make sure that you're protecting people's privacy, so they share with you.
Yes.
It's important that they tell us what's going on so we can give them the proper advice.
Right.
People only tell you half the story, and you're not getting the proper advice.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure people are comfortable and know things are private so they can give us what we need to know to give them the proper advice.
It's like a diagnosis when you go to the doctor. Tell me everything so I can make the right diagnosis. And it's in their best interest to tell you everything. Otherwise, they're just wasting their money and their time and all of that stuff. So
Very true. And it's oftentimes you have to be patient and get their trust.
Absolutely.
And once you have their trust and you get a lot more of the information, it's a lot more of an efficient process and better process for both of us.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to contact you. We can telephone you. We can go to the website. We can do the live chat. And then there's the good old-fashioned going and seeing the person after they've made a consultation. So tell us, how does that process work?
So ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੋਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਲੈ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ
Okay.
ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਸਲਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਬੁੱਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਲਾਇਰ ਨਾਲ ਸੋ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆ ਕੇ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ.
Very good. Okay. Adam, is there more that you want to add to any of the conversation? We've covered a lot of things today in lots of different languages. And I think ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਵਨੀਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵੀ ਸਿਖਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ.
Yeah.
Right, Adam?
Sure.
You say hanji.
Hanji. Yeah, hanji. I do know that one.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you also have to learn Nenji.
Okay.
That means no.
All right.
So basically, if you put G at the end of anything, I think you're good.
Okay.
So
Fair
is
enough.
there anything that you wanted to add to our conversation or a message that you want to give to our viewers?
I hope the viewers understand that Simpson Thomas & Associates is there to help the individual. No matter what your problems may be it family law, employment law, immigration, personal injury, or other problems you face, we are here to help. That's our job. That's what we like to do. We're here for the individual, support you in any way we can for any legal matters you may resolve. So please contact us in any way you see fit, and we'll do our best to get back to you, speak to you, and hopefully help you through these difficult times. Because we know when you contact a lawyer, it's because of a difficult time, and we're here to help you through that. So we're here to support you, help you with whatever you need in the legal and personal world. Thank you.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ 604-689-8888 ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ www.simpsonthomas.com ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਚ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ.
Very good. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming in today and letting us understand a bit more about the help that lawyers provide. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. ਇਹ ਸੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤਾਂ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੇ ਫਿਕਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਮਦਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਮਦਦ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੰਬਰ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਆ ਨਾਲੇ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਨੰਬਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਐਨੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਸੀ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਕਰੋ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰੋ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਨੀਆ ਵੈਸਟ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਫॉर ਵਾਚਿੰਗ